So, Boker Tov to everybody, which means good morning for those who don't speak Hebrew. And first we start with a bracha, with a blessing, as this is called Sunday morning Torah learning and coffee. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol niya bidvarav. So, today we will begin with learning Pirkei Avot, which is the ethics of our fathers. And the reason why we are learning it now is because it is customary that between Passover and Shavuot, we just finished Passover, and between Passover and Shavuot, we learn and study and read the Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. So, a little bit of introduction. And each week we do a chapter. There are 5 chapters, plus one that is somewhat of an addendum. So each week we learn a different chapter. So this past Shabbat we learned chapter 1. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and focus maybe on 1, 2, or 3 Mishnahs or Mishnayos, which are individual paragraphs of the ethics of the fathers. So let me explain a little bit why and the structure. So first, to explain what Pirkei Avot is. Pirkei Avot is one of the sections of the Talmud, and the literal translation is chapters of the fathers or our fathers, and it is a collection of the words of the sages, part of the Talmud, that focuses specifically on ethics. Meaning, you have within the Talmud, you have anything from the laws which begin, let's say, Brachot is the first tractate. You have the laws of Shabbat. You have the laws of marriage. You have the laws of monetary responsibility and damage, and so on. So you have many laws throughout the Talmud which encompass all of Judaism, basically. Then you have one tractate which is dedicated specifically for ethics, Pirkei Avot. And so that's the tractate that we're learning now. And one of the reasons that we learned this now in the summer, commentaries give different reasons. One reason, of course, is based on a statement said in Pirkei Avot itself. Pirkei Avot says, "Derech eretz kodma laTorah," that having good value, having good moral character, Derech eretz, which is translated as the way of the land, literally, but it means good moral character, comes even before Torah and the usual observance of the basic mitzvot. And study Torah is first to develop good moral character. So Derech Eretz comes before Kadmalo Torah. So in preparation for receiving of the Torah, which we celebrate on the holiday of Shavuot in about a little bit over 5 weeks from now, we learn Pirkei Avot to fine-tune our moral character based on the teachings of Torah. And therefore we do this before Shavuot. That's one reason that's given. Another reason that's given is that we do it now because as it's starting to get warmer and the summer is coming, so sometimes the temptation for things that are maybe inappropriate, that become a little stronger during summer, social time, and so on. So we learn Pirkei Avot to combat that, to properly sort of balance that. So that's some of the reasons that we learn Pirkei Avot now. Now, why is it called Ethics of the Fathers? So again, here the Rebbe tells us that because these are the fathering sort of principles of Torah, the moral foundation of Torah, that's why we call it Pirkei Avot. But there's another reason that's given, is because every father should learn this as a way of knowing how to properly educate your children with good values in a proper Torah way. So that's what we have. That's why this is called Pirkei Avot. And also, our rabbis are called our fathers because somebody who teaches someone else good moral character is essentially their father, because a proper teacher is one that is called the father of his students. And let me elaborate that for a moment, and that's very important, especially in the background of what we're going through right now, where parents are literally the teachers to a large extent of their kindalach. And as we spoke in the past, that the most important element of a parent being a teacher is the fact that you have to be a good role model. But, and I dealt with this also with the MSD after the shooting there, and there was a lot of discussion of what is education all about. And while very often we focus when it comes to education on the fact of the knowledge that we give our kids, the academic level, which we focus often, we forget that teaching, even more importantly, is about the soul of our children. So Pirkei Avot is what tells a parent and a teacher about the true and most important teachings that one has to give over to his student, which is about ethics, which is about life, and so on. That's far more important and the values of life than the academic teachings. So with that with that introduction, I want to go ahead and talk, focus on one Mishnah, since this Mishnah talks about actually students and so on, and friends, which is very much important anytime, and especially right now. So, in chapter 29, the Mishnah says the following. This is the following Mishnah. That's not chapter 29, sorry. In chapter 1, Mishnah 6, the Mishnah says the following. What does the Mishnah say? Just give me a moment over here. The Mishnah says, this is a known Mishnah, but we'll say it again in line with the discussion before. Yeshua ben Prachya, and please send me questions. I always say that. I love to see questions. Yeshua ben Prachya, ve nitai ha'arbeli kiblu mehem. Now, the structure of the Mishnahs of the first Mishnahs of Pirkei Avot is that it starts from Moshe. Moshe kibel Torah misinai. Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and passed it on to Joshua, and Joshua to the elders. Joshua to the prophets, and the prophets to the elders. And just to digress for a moment, commentaries also point out, why does the Mishnah here in Avot tell us about the history of how the Mishnah was passed down? Shouldn't it be the first Mishnah in the Talmud? Why is it the first Mishnah in ethics, in the ethical teachings of the Talmud? And very importantly, commentaries explain, it is to tell us that you would think these ethics are just like another self-help book. Take it or leave it, and it's just a good advice from the sages. So the Mishnah says that the Torah was passed down from Moshe, and he puts that Mishnah from Moses here as an introduction to ethics of the fathers, in order to tell us that these ethics are part of what the sages received from Sinai. It's part of Torah. So don't just take it as another self-help book. You could go out and buy I don't know, Dale Carnegie's book, or how to listen to how to talk so kids will listen, and how to listen so kids will speak. All these good books. They're good books. But this is not just another good self-help book. This is Torah. It's part of what the Torah has passed on. It's part of what Moshe passed on from Sinai, and so on. So that is the introduction. That it is that why we hear this Mishnah. Okay, so let's get now to one of the Mishnahs, and the reason why I was saying this is because the Mishnah, the Pirkei Avot, is structured in a way that it starts with the earlier sages, and it passes through the generations of the sages of the Mishnah and Talmud era. So the first Mishnah is the following. Yeshua ben Prachya and Nitai ha'arbeli kiblu mehem. Yeshua ben Prachya and Nitai ha'arbeli received their teachings in general, and they were the leaders of their generation, and they received all their teachings from the rabbis before. And now the Mishnah continues to say the three ethical teachings that Yeshua ben Prachya would always teach. And the teachings that they would teach would also be related to some of their life's experience, as I will explain in a moment. Yeshua ben Prachya says the following. His first ethical teaching is Asei lecho rav. You shall make for yourself a teacher. Or perhaps we could translate this, you should make for yourself a mentor. Yeshua ben Prachya said that in life, the most important thing are the following three things, and the first thing he lists is you should have a mentor. Now, why would Yeshua ben Prachya say that that's the most important thing in life? Because it depends from which perspective you're coming and what life is all about. If life is about pleasure, if life is about self-gratification, if life is just living, then that's not the most important thing in life. But if life is about purpose, if life is about meaning, if life is about making yourself better and making the world around you better, and in order to achieve that, you cannot be biased, then the most important thing in life, says Yeshua ben Prachya, is you should have a mentor who could guide you and who could instruct you, guide you, inspire you to be the best you can be in terms of your overall purpose and mission. In other words, a real teacher is one who recognizes your qualities, knows your strengths, knows your weaknesses, and can give you constructive criticism and could guide you in a way that you should be the best you, again, in terms of your mission and purpose. And that is also an interesting thing why the Mishnah says, Asay lechor rav. You should make for yourself a teacher. The reason for that is because the word asay in the language of the Mishnah also has the connotation of like impose upon yourself. The point being is that, you know, we live in a time that nobody, well, it's always been that way, but maybe perhaps more now, you know, it's just the whole style of teaching has changed. We're very careful not to offend and not to hurt, and hurt is a good thing, but not to offend. A hurt is not a good thing. A hurt is a good thing, to be careful not to hurt, but not to offend. And sometimes we withhold what needs to be withheld, and that's not necessarily a good thing. We've seen the meme that's gone around, and just like that, spanking is back in the schools. But asay l'charav means that you should impose upon yourself a teacher. It also means that. If to have a teacher that's just going to tell you how nice you are, how fine you are, how great you are, that's not what the Mishnah is talking about. And that's why it says asay l'charav, have one teacher, because it's not so easy to find a teacher that's going to be straight with you, going to really care about you, but is going to tell you things as is in an effective way, of course. But even things that you don't necessarily want to hear and like to hear. So that's why the Mishnah says asay l'charav. Make for yourself a teacher, which also means impose upon yourself a teacher. And it says it in the singular, Rav, not Rabbanim, not rabbis, because there is a place for learning from many people, and there's a place for that. But then you have to have one mentor that's consistent, that's your go-to person for guidance, for instruction, and this refers to everybody. The rabbi also needs to have a rabbi, because everybody needs to have somebody that will guide him to be a better person and to improve, etc. So that's that. Now, getting to the next statement in the Mishnah. The next statement in the Mishnah is asay is uknei lecha chaver. You should have for yourself a friend. Actually, let me step back. Uknei lecha chaver literally means you should purchase for yourself a friend. An interesting expression, uknei lecha chaver, you should purchase for yourself a friend. What does that mean? You should shmir the friend. So I want to actually read here for a moment from the Rambam. So bear with me. The famous Rambam Maimonides talks about, he says there are three types of love. I'm reading here. There's a utilitarian love, such as the friendship between business partners. There's a gratification love, which is divided into two. Desire love, such as the one as that possessed by men toward women. And then there's security love, in which an individual finds a friend with whom he can be perfectly honest and from whom he need hide nothing. He can reveal any deed, thought, or feeling that he has without worry. Such a friendship brings a person an immense amount of gratification and delight. And third, says the Rambam, there's virtue love, in which two individuals are united by a common aspiration toward objective truth and goodness. Each friend seeks to assist his fellow in reaching this goal. This is the love that the Mishnah is instructing us to acquire. So virtue love is what the Mishnah talks about, and that's not easy to find. Uknei lecha chaver. And I would add that uknei lecha chaver over here, since the Mishnah is saying this, he doesn't mean that you should purchase a friend as what we would call in Yiddish schmearing. You know, give him whatever the person wants, or give her the person wants, so that you could buy their friendship. I think that the Mishnah here is talking about that you should be willing to give up. It shouldn't be a friendship of just one way of what you receive, but you should be willing to give up. And to have a true altruistic friend is a very difficult thing. And therefore, the Mishnah also says, have one friend. Because even to have one friend, one true selfless friend, is a very, very difficult thing. Look around all your social acquaintances and see how many people are really true friends, not because, you know, it's socially exciting and entertaining, etc. And I want to add a line here, which is a very important line, and there's several ways sort of to interpret this line, from Reb Shmuel, the Rebbe Maharash of Lubavitch, and I'm reading over here from the Pirkei Avot commentary. The Reb Shmuel of Lubavitch said, if you do not have a teacher, your friend is not a friend. Okay, again, if you do not have a teacher, your friend is not a friend. And if you do not have a friend, your teacher is not a teacher. Having a true friend is crucial for one's spiritual development. I want to analyze this for a moment, and bear with me over here. So he says, if you do not have a teacher, your friend is not a friend. That could be explained in various ways. One way to explain that is that if you do not have a teacher, your friend is not a friend, because a true friend would guide you and push you to having a teacher. A true friend knows that you must have a teacher. So if you do not have a if you do not have a teacher, your friend is not a friend. That's one interpretation in this statement of the Rebbe Maharash. And you're welcome to give your own thoughts. Another interpretation I would suggest is, if you do not have a teacher, your friend is not a friend, can be the other way around. And that maybe is perhaps the second statement. If you do not have a friend, your teacher is not a teacher. If you do not have a friend, your teacher is not a teacher. In line with my first explanation is that a good teacher will also make sure you have a friend. There is nothing more important in life to have the right teacher and to have the right friend. How many of us can say that we have a true mentor, that when we have a uncertainty of what direction to take in terms of right from wrong, that we have a mentor that we truly trust, that we can turn to? We have lots of friends, but a good friend will push you to having a teacher. And you could also interpret this statement that without a teacher, you have to question if you're making the right friend choices. So let me maybe sum it up like this with regards to this particular two statements. A good teacher will also inspire you to have the right friends. The right friends or friend will inspire you to have a good teacher. And not only that, the right friend will inspire you to listen to your teacher and to follow your teacher's instructions, or to use it as in school classroom terms. You'll have many friends who will encourage you not to be a goody-goody and to go ahead and be mischievous because it serves their purpose. They're not looking out for your good. They're looking out for their own good. A real friend will encourage you to abide and to listen and to follow the instructions of the teacher. And that's true in general life as well. And maybe we could read into this that the Rebbe Maharash's final statement is, having a true friend is crucial for one's spiritual development. And I just take a little lesson for this, that he could have said having a teacher and a friend is crucial for one's spiritual development. But he says having a true friend, and maybe that is his way of saying that a true friend, and emphasis true friend, not just social acquaintances, is even more important than a teacher. Because let's face it, we interact and we just spend much more time with our friend. And the impact of a friend, the trust we have in a friend, goes maybe even beyond our teacher. So while both are very important, he sees it necessary to repeat and summarize, and he only summarizes about a friend, which tells us that a friend is even more important. So this is the first two statements of Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya. And then his final statement, which is also a very important statement, he says, "V'havei don es kol ha'adam lekaf zchus." You should judge every single person favorably. Now, okay, fine, that's a beautiful statement. Judge every single person favorably. And here, I want to back up for a moment so that we understand why is it that Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachya is the one that made these statements about having a teacher, having a friend, and judge every person favorably. So, before I get there, I want to also make a general point that one of the reasons the connection of this last statement, the first two statements, is kind of simple and obvious, because having a friend and having a teacher, inevitably you're going to see faults in both of them, because no human being is perfect. And when you're going to get to know your friend in a relationship and your teacher, you're going to see imperfections. And perhaps that's why he puts this last. In other words, in the beginning of any relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, eventually, for any friendship, usually we only show our best side, right? Very seldom do, when you're dating, will you complain that your husband doesn't put away his socks. After you get married, then maybe 6 months into the marriage, all of a sudden, you'll discover that he's a mess. That not he's a mess, that he makes a mess and leaves around and he leaves a mess. It's the way we are, At the beginning, we always make sure to hide our faults and everything is perfect. And then we start to relax and we show our shortcomings and our flaws, etc. That's when the Mishnah comes and says, towards the end, after the Rav and after after telling us about a teacher and after telling us about a friend, the Mishnah says, judge every person favorably. That's when it's very important. But I want to go back now to why is it that Yeshua ben Prachya is the one who says this. So Yeshua ben Prachya was the leading rabbi. Him and Nitai Harbeli. He and Nitai Harbeli were the two leading rabbis of their time. And the Talmud relates the following story. And that gives us a little insight into why it was he who said this Mishnah, these teachings. And this was his ethical teachings. Yeshua ben Prachya was once traveling with his students when they stopped at an inn. And there was the hostess that was looking after them and taking care of them. So one of the students of Yeshua ben Prachya commented that look how ugly the hostess is. Her eyes are round. She had, I guess, to him it was like sort of striking that her eyes made her ugly. And he made that comment to his teacher, Yeshua ben Prachya. So Yeshua ben Prachya said to him, reacted and said, he says, what business is that you're looking? You're holy. You're here. We're students. What are you looking so closely at the hostess? And he banned him. He totally banned him from being his student. And Yeshua and the student was very remorseful, and he kept on coming back to Yeshua ben Prachya, his teacher, for acceptance, asking forgiveness and acceptance. And Yeshua ben Prachya kept on banning him. He was a strict disciplinarian. And one time he came back, and this Yeshua ben Prachya was actually willing to take him back. He felt that the point was made, and that he did what he had to do as a teacher to really guide the student back. That was his objective. But he was in the middle of the Shema. And during the Shema, you're not supposed to interrupt. So he made with his hand that the student should wait. And the student took this as a sign that he's again pushing him away. And that sort of broke the camel's back. That was the final nail in the coffin for the student, and he totally became a heretic, and he abandoned the ways of his teacher and of his tradition, and he became a grave sinner. And Yeshua ben Prachya himself was devastated because he did whatever he did, whether we here, the listening audience, agree or not. But Yeshua ben Prachya was a very holy man, and I guess he felt that this is what should have needed to be done for the student. But he actually was very broken about the reaction, and that the student was lost and gone, and actually even turned others away from Judaism and tradition and proper behavior and ethics and so on. And he then came out with a statement, which became a very famous statement, that La'olam Yehei Smol Docha V'Yamin Mekareves, or Yamin Mekareves Smol Docha, I don't remember the exact order, which means it should always be that your right hand, meaning your stronger, more powerful hand, brings people closer, and your left, your weaker hand, should push people away. Meaning you should use a lot more energy and strength in bringing people closer, and much weaker, your weaker side, when necessary, should be the one that sometimes pushes away. So it is for that reason that Yeshua ben Prachya said the following: Seilach Harav, a teacher, is very important. He saw the impact for the good and not so good of a teacher, and how important it is to have the right mentor, and how important it is for the mentor to take that position so seriously. He also saw the importance of a friend, seeing how the impact this individual had on fellow friends. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, he ended off with the statement with you should judge every person favorably, because he realized that he was too harsh in his judgment of this student. So that's why it was Yeshua ben Prachya who himself was the one who said that this became the three ethical repeated teachments of Yeshua ben Prachya. And I want to conclude with a couple of, and then maybe sort of wrap this up with a couple of, with maybe a story. There's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. Well, actually, let me go back for a moment. There's also a nice insight of Aveidones Kol Adam Lekavschus. You should judge every person favorably. There's a thought that in the language of the Mishnah itself tells us how you could judge a person favorably. The Mishnah says, Aveidones Kol Ha'adam, you should judge every person. But that could also be read as Aveidon, that could also be interpreted as Aveidon, as Kol Ha'adam, you should judge the entire person. Kol Ha'adam means the entire person. And let me elaborate. If I asked you, the listener, and I asked myself, am I a good person? Generally, the answer would be, yes, I'm a good person. We think of ourselves as good people. If I asked you, do you have faults? What would be the answer? If you were honest with yourself, most individuals would say, yes, we have faults. So why don't you like yourself? Sorry, why do you like yourself? And the answer would be, because I don't focus on my fault, I focus on everything else. I have a fault, I have to improve, I have to be better, but that's not who I am. I don't define myself by my fault. The Mishnah is saying, judge another person favorably. Do not define yourself, do not define that person by their fault. Look at all their qualities, and every person has many qualities. Don't zero in on their fault, and you'll see that you like them. You'll see there's a lot of good to find. You'll judge them favorably. As Dennis Prager, the known talk show host on the West Coast, says, I try not to judge another person's motives, because most of the time I don't even know my own motives. The Baal Shem Tov, there's a story told with the Baal Shem Tov that he was the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, great spiritual teacher, once was teaching, and a very simple Jew walked into the synagogue. In those days there were travelers, and the first place he would come would be to the synagogue. Baal Shem Tov stopped his teachings and invited this fellow up to the front, and they all thought that he must be some very hidden, lofty, righteous person, that the Baal Shem Tov saw that this person was a lofty soul, and that's why we invited him up front. It turned out, after much pestering by the other students, that he was just a simple beggar They asked the Baal Shem Tov why the special treatment, and he said, one day I'll be up there in heaven, and I will be there with my Maimonides and all the other greats, and I want to be treated with a front seat so I could hear all the tremendous holy spiritual wisdom that's being shared. So as I shared this simple person in a special way, I hope to be treated the same way. Whether this is a true story with the Baal Shem Tov and in character with the Baal Shem Tov is perhaps questionable. The message is how you judge others and you treat others. That's how Hashem will treat and judge us. So if you want to be judged favorably, judge others favorably. So to wrap this up, and to bring it home maybe on a practical level for all of us as we learn from the ethics of the Fathers, and it's meant for us to prepare for the giving of the Torah in 5 weeks by refining ourselves. So let's take a practical lesson of today's teaching, and as we've learned it, and including with the commentaries. But let's not forget the simple teachings of Aseh Lecha Rav. Place for yourself a mentor, very important for all of us. You have to have a mentor if you want to be a better person, and again, in terms of fulfilling the purpose and mission in your life. We have a limited time over here. This virus reminds us we don't know from day to day. And this is not meant to sadden us. It's meant to actually invigorate us, inspire us. And every moment we have is so important. And you want to know what's your best use, so to speak, fulfilling what you're needed for. And that's based on who you are. You must have a teacher. You must have a friend. And friends, and the right friends, can make all the difference between being a good person, not a good person. You should evaluate that. Sometimes it's hard to break off a friend that's a negative influence, that pulls you down. May the learning of today's Mishnah, learning how important a good friend is and the right friend is, empower us to get away from friends who are a bad influence, unless we think we have the power to influence them positively. If not, cut it. And look around and see, do you have even one friend that brings out the best in you and makes you a better person? And number 3, let all of us stop being so judgmental of others. We all are to a certain degree. Now, sometimes being judgmental is important because we need to know who we should have as a friend and who we should have as a teacher. But often we overstep the line and we're judgmental in the negative sense. And we judge even perhaps our teachers and our loved ones and even our children. We are often judgmental and zero in and highlight their negatives, and we don't focus and we don't pay attention to their positives. So the Mishnah today that we're learning empowers us to improve on that. Avedonis kol adam, judge every person. And I will even add a quick thought that comes to my mind. It says every person, even ourselves. It's important to judge ourselves positively. If we judge ourselves positively, there's a good chance that we'll even judge others positively. So that's the Pirkei Avot for today. And I want to announce sort of a series that I will most likely begin. I've been doing a little thought right before Shabbat. So I want to announce that, God willing, right before Shabbat, somewhere within an hour before Shabbat, I will be doing a series for the next, 5, 6, 7 weeks, we'll see how it goes, on this, uncovering Shabbat, which will be, 1 week we'll have a class of the meaning and insight of Shalom Aleichem. We'll have a class on wine for Shabbat. Why wine? The insight, the meaning of that. Why do we eat fish on Shabbat? Why do we dress, and the insights into that, both on a basic level, meaning just instructions of how to go through the different things of Shabbat, the prayers of Shabbat, and also on a little bit more deeper level. So I plan on doing that. I would love to hear feedback if there's an interest that you guys would like to. Every before Shabbat, maybe for 10 minutes, a little insight, a little instruction of how to on Shabbat, and a little insight into those different things that we do on Shabbat. Let me know your feedback. I'd love to hear. Everybody have a fantastic rest of the week. We're here to help, and Thank you to the kind partners in Chabad's helping. We expect another shipment of food, God willing, tomorrow, Monday. Details will be announced tomorrow. If you know either yourself or others who need food, we're expecting, I hope it should arrive tomorrow, thousands of pre-packaged, ready-to-eat, kosher meals for those in need. Again, until I have it, it's not guaranteed, but I've been told that we should get it tomorrow, as well as other products. Please don't reach out to me privately. Let me know whether you need yourself or you know somebody. It's available for distribution at absolutely no cost. Again, thank you to the partners who are helping this happen. Everybody have a fantastic rest of the day, rest of the week. Sei gesund.